it was.
All right.
Otherwise, it. Ready? My mic's working? Okay.
Yeah. Roland, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank
guess
you
you
very
can-
much for doing this demo.
Okay.
I'm going to shut my camera off and eat my dinner and watch.
And you can. Okay, I'm going to flip this around so I can see it. Almost there.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna shut the speaker off, it'll drive you to drink. There you go.
There we go. Can we get my head?
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. I can.
Yeah, good. All right.
Good evening.
This is
what we're gonna be doing. It's the Calabash bowl. It's not the Hawaiian. I did a demo, I showed it, a guy named Jeff Hornum, and I'm sure that's not how you say his name. But I watched his demo and he called it an African
Calabash bowl. And the Calabash bowl is just a gourd. The Calabash is a gourd. And Native Americans, and I'm calling this Native American Calabash, because this is a gourd.
And they used to
Just cut it, and they use the bottom as a container.
This is a
The type of gourd, there's all kinds. There are some that won't work. A pumpkin will not work as a Calabash bowl because they rot real quick.
But there's something like this, they dry out and they just work really good as a container. The whole thing about the Calabash is they have a round bottom. And the reason why they have a round is because they're just copying the gourd. In Native Americans, when they
used the gourd, and then when they went to pottery, they just copied the forms that they had. I've got a book on Southwest pottery, and if you look inside, you'll see a lot of representations of that round bottom bowl. And the bowls are really neat because they spin. I don't know if you can, you can see that. They just spin so cool when you got a nice round bottom, and they sit upright. They don't. You can't tip them over. They're always going to go back up. And that's because there's this ballast in the bottom here. So usually my bottom is a little heavier than my wall. So my walls start this thickness, and then when I get down towards my bottom, I leave a little bit more meat there. So it's a little heavier. So it just sits nice. And but that's what they are. You can have them different sizes. Like this is a not as deep a one. It's not so deep. You can have something like this, and then you can have a deeper one. So the only thing that matters is that 1/3, 1/3, 2/3. And so this radius, when this comes up, you want to go 2/3, and then the top side should be 1/3 when you make that transition. And it doesn't have to be that exact because, again, you're just copying a gourd, and it just makes it easier. But this is a white oak that's got a tung oil finish on it, so this one's actually done. I'm going to show you how I get there we go. It's so hard to watch what's happening on that screen. But if you see that, I got a little sapwood on both sides here, so I got a nice balance. I really like that. And when I get over there by my lathe, I'll show you how I do that. But all my work is generally like that. Here's another one that you can see you can't see that good because it's not finished. But I really like to have a nice balance in the bottom. And you wind up with this, you wind up with a nice figure right down on the center of your bowl. And it just works nice that way. Here's a cherry. And again, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's this nice form right here where my grains all come together. I like that, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm not going to show you how. Rick is going to zoom in right here. I'm not going to show you how to do this because you don't want to do this. That's very scary. When they tell you to stay out of the line of fire, when I turn on my lathe, I'll show you where that line is. But because I wasn't standing in front of this, I didn't get hurt. the things flew on both sides of this room. I was probably running around 1,400, 1,500. I'm not really sure, but it just went everywhere. And you can see it's a lot of little pieces. I got little pieces, big pieces. It's but the nice thing about it is, if you look, you can see my wall thickness is really nice. There are better ways to check that, and usually they go to the bandsaw. But I got a pretty consistent wall thickness, so I felt good about that. I did not. This was going to be a real pretty bowl, but I caught that little catch, and I don't care how long you've been turning, stuff happens. And I've done over 800 bowls, and that's the first time that's happened. Early on, I used to have them jump off at me. But this is the first time that I had one that explode like a shotgun. It made that much noise when it went. It just was, it was scary, very scary. But because, again, out of the line of fire. So when I go over by my lathe, I'll show you. I'm going to go over here for a second. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Turn my computer. I want to be able to see what I'm showing you to make sure you can see what I'm doing. This here is another. Can we see that? I'm not seeing it. Here we go. This is where I would cut my work right here, because here's my pith. If I cut it here, it would be totally unbalanced. But because here's the pith, and the equal distance between here and here is where I would cut this piece. And I'd have a shallow bowl here and a deeper bowl here. If you cut it across this way, you'd have two deep bowls, but you wouldn't have that same figure on the top and on the bottom. You just miss out on so much more. So I'd rather have that, and even have waste. I don't care if I get waste. If I have one good bowl, I'd rather have one good bowl than two bowls that are just so-so. But that's how I would cut it. So this is a piece of ash, and that's a piece that I already showed you there. And I have this mounted. It's not mounted perfect. I just stuck it here so we could make sure we were doing. See, right here we have a pith. Can we see that, Mike? There we go. Yeah, so here, this is the pith. So I'm going to mount this, so when I turn it, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to drop down off of that pith. And I do that with this here, a nice little laser. So I find my pith. I'm going to come over here. We're going to drop this down like so. I'm going to go like so. And that's going to be pretty good. So what I got is this, and then its equal is over here. So I'm going to get rid of this much on this side. This will be the top of my bowl right here. And unfortunately, the way the hot went through this, it just went wild like a snake. So when I showed you like where I cut it in half and I usually get a nice balance, this will still be there, but it won't be like I'm used to. So now I can, that's close enough. I'm happy with that. Let me try one here. Okay, we're not going to care about that either. Move that over. Then I got to get rid of that pith. Okay, that's close enough. And what I want to do now is balance my sapwood and hotwood. Close, and they're kind of close. They're not exactly where I want them, but they're close enough. And what I want to do now is lock that on my drive. And if you see, I'm just wobbling that back and forth. If I kept spinning it, the only thing I would do is I would just keep cutting on my piece, on my drive. it would just keep digging in. But if you just go a little at a time till it finally catches, now it's dug in, no, I can't move that, that's fine. And what you see a lot of people do, it's what they would do, is they would start cutting here and cut across. And I do not do it that way. I'm gonna start over here and then I'm gonna run out. And I got, this is one of my grinds. And this is that parabolic tool. I'm not really familiar with this that much. You'll see I can cut pretty good with it. And then this is the other, and that's wire out of my way. How's that? Okay, here we go. And that's the U. And this hogs out a lot of wood too. I really like this one here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find this over here, drop it down where I want it to be, spin it by hand. I always spin it by hand. Tail sock. Turn it down to slow as it goes. Now I can turn it on. Now I can bring my speed up to where I feel comfortable. I'm going to be happy with that right now. I always wear a shield because I do not want to get hurt. And I'm going to start with the parabolic, and we're going to see how this works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting right here and work my way in. And you'll see as I'm going to cut a little bit and just step my way out into here. And then I'll move my rest and then do it again until I get that thing round. So I'd rather sneak it up and go this way than hit that airspace and bang, bang, bang. It's just end grain all the time. This way, that face grain is so much better than end grain. Okay. Now, if you're watching me, I'm riding my bevel. I come into my wood, and then I'm just letting that bevel guide me through here. And I could have cut this round on the bandsaw, but I know how to use the bandsaw, and I'd rather do this. So I'm learning. I'm constantly learning what the chisel can do for me. And I can sharpen my chisel. I don't know how to sharpen those bandsaw blades yet. So that you wind up paying for them. So I'd rather just make it round on this way here. It really doesn't take that much longer. And when I was talking about line of fire, on the side of my work. You know, I don't work in the front like this. You know, if I'm in the front, that thing blows off. It blows off in my face. But if I'm standing over here, it's only going to go in that direction. It's not going to go towards the tailstock. It never goes in away. It's, you know, object in motion stays in motion unless another force stops it. And if you're in the line of fire, you will be that force that will stop it because it will smash you. And I don't like to be smashed too many times. Okay, it's getting balanced. Pick up my speed. Still doing around. What I want to do now is just flatten my face off and get down below that pith. Okay, we're right at the pith. Take a little bit, just a little bit more. Get rid of a little bit more up here. I don't know if you can see that. There was a little limb growing right there. I don't know if we can get by that or what's going to happen here. I want to lay out for my tenon right now. I have these already set. And what I do is and I know that I got a little bit of bark out of it. I'm going to move that. And that's all I do. I know I don't want to go onto the line. I want to stay off the line. This is a little big, so I can actually go to the line and it'll be just fine. But that gives me a little bit of wood to play with. And this is the grind that I use, a little fingernail grind. And that's what I'll do to make my tenon, my dovetail tenon. It works nice. You know, whatever works for you, do it. I like working it like this here. That's my dovetail. And what I want to do now is make sure that this is small enough that when my jaws close against this, that will fit inside my jaws. And that's what I'm gonna remove that too, because I've done this enough times that I know exactly how much wood I'm gonna need. And now the next thing I want to do and I put another step here, and I'll show you why I did that later. But when I'm rounding my bowl down into here, having that little extra step gives me a little bit of extra wood down here in case I'm off a little bit. But that'll be what I'm going to do now. So this is pretty much ready. I can take this out, and I'm going to put it in the chuck. Can you zoom in right here? All right, good. So what I want to do is make sure that my jaws, the outside part of that jaw is the piece that's hitting the hardest. I want to make sure that the face of this bowl is against those jaws. I want to make sure that the bottom of this tenon isn't touching the back of my jaws. And you can see how it's really weird watching what's going on. But you can see that there's that little space there. And you always want to have a space there. If you push it up against, you know, when I first started doing this, I thought, well, if I push it up against, that's the best spot to be. But it's not, because then you don't. The idea of the dovetail is when you clamp it closed, it sucks the bowl into it. And it just makes for a good, and then you just give it a good clamping. Yeah. And that's not going anywhere. And I believe that thing blew apart is I was actually using my smaller chuck, and I only had a small tenon on it, and I don't think that was enough. You know, I got away with it a few times, but it only takes one blow up to know that you don't want to try it again. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this up, just help it out a little bit. Now we're going to go back over here. We're going to get rid of some of this. Turn it down to slow. Make sure everything's working great. Now I can bring my speed up. Okay. Now we're going to see where we are. Okay, that limb right here comes out right here, so it's sliding right through in this direction. So I think that's going to be just fine. Okay. Now this is going to be the top of my bowl right here, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And you're probably wondering, why don't I just drill that out and use one of those Forstner bits and take a bunch of that wood out of there? Because I know how to use a Forstner bit. I want to learn how to turn. And the more I turn, I truly believe, the better I get. So I'd rather, even this is just simple stuff, but if I'm paying attention to my tool and my work, I'm watching that chip come off my tool and I'm learning how this actually works, versus me never knowing. And, you know, I just wind up with whatever. I'd rather know what's going on. And when I get the inside, I'm going to use my hollowing tool to do that undercut. And again, it just lets me know what's happening with a hollowing tool when I can't see inside hollowing. So you can use a hollowing tool to do an undercut in here. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. So I still got bark here, so I want to get rid of the bark. Just one more pass. You can't see, maybe Mike will show you this tool handle. Can you get at my tool handle? No, and that's okay. No, it's going to happen. Oh no, that would have been fine. Yeah, right here, that's just fine. I just want to show you where my tool. No, my tool handle is always here on my hip. So I'm always holding it right here. This is not, for my hand, fingers aren't pretty much doing anything. Everything is against my hip, and I'm moving my hip around to do most of my cutting. And I was told that's how it's done. When I first started to turn, this is how I held everything. And if you do this for an hour and a half, 2 hours, you're tired. And then I go to this turning club, and it's full of old people. I mean, they were old, and I'm not old yet, but they were really old. And I said, how can you do this? You know, like I'm exhausted after 2 hours. It's like being at the gym for 8 hours because it was that death grip. And they kept trying to say, no, you don't have to hold it like that. And then actually one guy, Bobby, actually let me come down to his basement, and he showed me, you just take your time, and you know, you don't have to grab this. You can just get by like so. It just works nice. And but always keep it on your hip. And I try. Occasionally you're going to see me do something like this, but most of my turning is down here. There's another guy named Joe McGill. I think you might know him. He's from our club. He did a safety thing. And again, because I'm who I am, I didn't half-ass listen to him. He talked about the shoulder. He talked about exercising and stretching. Right now, I can hardly do this. I got so much pain up in here. It's getting a lot better. I'm doing those exercises. I'm doing those stretches. I'm making this shoulder healthy again. But a month ago, I could hardly move it. And that's because I was doing repetitious work. I wasn't stopping. I wasn't stretching. I wasn't doing anything that guy Joe McGill told me to do. Because why should I? I'm not doing this the rest of my life. I thought I would get by, but it doesn't work that way. So now I'm going to show you how to do that 1/3, 2/3, and that's where I measure. The only time I ever really measure. And I got a check here, it looks like. I'm going to get rid of that. No, that's a check. So I got 4 inches. So I know, so that's about 1 3/8. Thereabouts. Becomes that 1/3, 2/3. And then so that's where that transition is going to take place, right here. I'm going to go after this. I want to get rid of some of that. I don't know how far it is. I don't know if I can just, if just the surface right there. I'm going to try and clean some of that off. At least try to get below that check. I don't want that check to be in the top of my bowl. So because it's a Calabash bowl, I don't have to make it any special depth. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of this because I can see a check coming right across here. And as long as I see it, I might as well get rid of it. You know, if I wanted to, I could use CA glue and try to hold it together. But we're just going to make the bowl a little shallower. And that gets rid of that check. But now I got to go back to my 1/3, 2/3. I don't know how much I just took off. But I'm going to have to move that line a little bit, I bet you. All right, so I took up almost a 1/2 inch. So we're going to go right here. Let's go right here. That's that 1/3, 2/3, 2/5, 3/5, that golden rule. If you follow that, supposedly you can't go wrong. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to leave that little bead there because I'm going to let that become part of my bowl. And always shut your lathe off before you start moving stuff around here. And there's a reason for it. Because if you're holding this and for some reason it catches, then it's going to slam and hurt you. And that's why they say just stop. You don't. Why are you in such a big hurry? Why? Because I want to get it done. And so what I'm doing is I'm just rounding my bottom to where I left that little shelf. Yeah, so that's what I'm heading for, that shelf. And that's about where I'm at. So now this is where we're going to come from. And what I want to do is I want to come and pick up this line and let it work. And while I'm cutting, I'm looking up here, so I'm watching my shape take place. You know, I'm really not looking at my cutter. I'm looking up here. And if you're paying attention to what's going on up here, you can adjust the motion of your tool. And now what I want to do is just shut it off because I told you already you're supposed to shut it off. And I'm going to come back here. Okay, this is that transition, so I'm going to start rounding that into that direction. Yeah, I don't need a bead that high. Let's get rid of some of this. And all I did then was just blend that bottom and top together, so I got a nice transition that goes, it just looks nice that way. And I still got a high bead, so I don't need that much wood there. We're going to go down. We're going to get rid of some of that. There. Then you can step back And you can look at your bowl and say, okay, that's a nice transition. That looks like a nice shape. This is going to go to that shelf, and the bottom of this bowl will be the bottom of that tenon that I put on there. How big is that chuck? I don't know, 4 inch? I hear 4 inch. Right now, I can tell you exactly that tenon is 3 3/4. That's how I turn that. So I'm going to say, if I close that up, it'd be 3 1/2, because probably another 1/2 inch. But I leave that 1/4 inch thereabouts to play. So that's how big that check is, and that's the that's called the thick mark chuck. Okay, so now I got a fairly nice shape, and now I'm going to clean out my inside. And I'll leave this here for a second. As long as it's there, it's not hurting anything. And now I can just start getting rid of some wood in there. And again, that's I got the tool on my hip, and I'm just working my hip into here. You know, so that's pretty much all I'm doing. And as I'm pushing that in, it's riding on that bevel, and it's just following the bevel into the center of my bowl. And you hear that chatter, so to speak? I can keep going, but what you're hearing is the tools getting dull. So, and you'll see immediately how much better it's going to cut as soon as I move that off. So now we're going to have a nice sharp tool, and you're going to see the difference. And a lot of times I will just keep pushing, and who cares? But because I'm showing you guys, I don't want you just to say, Roland, why are you using a dull tool? Well, watch how nice it's going to cut. Hear it? I got nice stream coming off of that. Everything about that is nice. And again, now it's so much easier if your tool is sharp. Okay, I'm way over on my tool rest. I shouldn't be that far. So what I'm going to do now is, I don't need this here anymore. We're going to get this out of the way. Yeah. Now we're going to come back over here, drop this down a little bit. Now I'm just going to nibble my way down. And because I didn't drill, I can watch my tool now. You know that little nub we're always trying to get rid of? I can pay attention now to see how to get rid of that. Instead of waiting until I'm at the bottom of my bowl, my last cut, and I got a nub and I don't know what to do with it. Now I can say, well, look, if I do this and just follow through, you know, I can get rid of that nub. You know, so if you present your tool at the right height, the nub goes right away. But you can keep practicing. And now I'm too far over my tool rest again. I can feel that force in my handle. So as soon as I start feeling that, you know, then I'll just bring myself up real nice and close. See that? I spun it. I don't even think about doing this anymore. I just spin it to make sure it spins. Because if it doesn't spin, that means you don't want to turn it on. That's one of those rules, I think. And again, it's on my hip. This arm isn't doing much of anything. It's on my hip, and my body's pushing this in as it's following that bevel. So I'm leaning into it, letting the bevel do the work, and I'm really not doing a whole lot. And what I want to do now is try to figure out what my wall thickness is. You know, so I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to start taking a little bit off. I'm going to kind of get near that. Whoa, see, that's a bad thing. I don't know if you noticed what I just did. I presented my tool to my wood that's spinning before I put it on my tool rest. And every time you do that, it's going to do what it just did. Always make sure it's on your tool rest. That's what the tool rest is there for. Then you can present it to the wood. And that's my wall thickness. That's what I'm figuring I'm going to work with. So now I can get rid of this extra wood right here. And now I'm going to show you. Oh, who cares about mine? Well, there's 2 towels there, so you can just leave one.
No, I'm good. They said it went all went down.
Moses. And now this is here we go. This is a hollowing tool. And this is what I'm going to use to do this undercut right here. You know, I can do it with the bowl gouge, but if I do it with this tool and I'm watching what's happening, because now I can see what's going on, I'll know what's going on when I'm doing a hollow form that I can't see in. You know, so the idea is to know what's going on in an open bowl before you try to figure out how to do it in a closed bowl. And then you could do it like this. This is a no-no. You want to make sure that the tool rest is beyond this point. You don't want to be over here. You want to actually get my tool rest, bring it back like so. And then I want a little bit more. Yeah. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go inside here and get that transition ready to move around. And the camera's not moving. So you can see what's going on in here. So I want this to be a little taller. So I usually have my boring tool a little bit higher than center, just a little bit. And now what I can do is I can come in here, because now I can see. If I'm doing a hollow form and I can't see what's going on, I'm just guessing. But now I can actually see, you know, what's going on with that tool. No, I want to get rid of this right here. I've got this awesome new dust collector. I'm going to turn it on just for a second. And this is just awesome. It's not on. I got a gate there that's close. So God, look at that. It's not pulling anything in. I got a gate. There we go. There, that's much better. You know, it just is just such a nice. It works so nice.
Like you sucked up a rabbit.
I thought I heard some noise. There's no impeller. I got 3 motors that are in the other side there. So I don't have to care what gets sucked up in there. It's not going to get caught up in the impeller. What I want to do now is make sure I get a nice wall thickness. So I know I want to get rid of, I got a little too much wood right here. So I can clean that up a little bit. A little bit more. Yeah, I'm basically using this like a scraper. It's negative, and so I'm just lifting up my handle a little bit, and then I'm just tilting my cutter, and then I'm just walking in and sliding it around. And it gives me a fairly nice finish right there, and that's a nice wall thickness. So now, because that transition is there now, I can get rid of some meat here, and then I can follow the rest of that in with my bowl gouge. But this is a nice way to practice using a hollow form tool without being inside a bowl that you can't see. And you know, I really like to be able to watch what's happening on the tip and how that chip is coming off and how I can adjust this tool to make a nice smooth finish inside versus something that's so choppy. You get something so choppy, you want to have a very, very little hole so nobody can go in there and see. But if you got a nice hollow form with a fairly good sized hole, you want it to be nice all the way through. And the best way, I think, is to know what's going on with a tool like this. But we don't need this anymore, so we're going to take this off. Put this down. Let's go with this one here. And this is a V. Where are we? Here we go. Yeah. Okay.
Take one. Just point it in front of the camera. We'll move the camera.
Well, this is a V cut. A nice swept back grind. And so that's a V on the inside. So we're going to use this one right now. Actually, we're not going to use that one. We're going to use this round one again. Because all I want to do is hog out wood, and I don't need a real sharp tool to do that. I just want to get rid of some wood. don't know if you can see this, but each time I come back out here, I go into that step. As soon as I go into that step, I'm not going to skate around. It's going to come in. I'm going to catch that nice step right there. There's a nice shoulder. I'm just going to follow that shoulder right in. I got some wood chip built up in this little groove, so we want to get rid of that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with this bowl gouge and get that shoulder and just continue that transition around into the bottom of my bowl. And again, I'm riding that bevel all the way down. I got a little bit there, so I'm going to come in, catch that, and walk it around. No, I'm starting to think I might have gone too deep, so nope, I didn't. I started to think that, so no. So rather than standing here thinking I'm going too deep and all I got is a piece of garbage, well, I just measure. And by measuring, it lets me know that I got plenty of wood there to get rid of. Now, there we go. I'm going to go back to this nice sharp tool. And what I'm going to do is get rid of some wood. I got some, and that groove fills up with chip. I want to get rid of that so that way I can see what I'm doing. And what I've got this tool almost completely closed. And this is the edge that I'm cutting with. So I can come into this shoulder and I'm just touching it, taking off little shavings at a time, just to get a nice transition. I'm trying to make that nice. And I can do that by just dragging that tool in and out. I'm using it. Yeah, see, so that's where we are. So I know that's my, now I want to make that down. So now I can come back with it like a normal tool. And again, I close it up. See what my wall thickness is. Yeah, that's I'm happy with that. That thing slides through. I'm a little heavy right in the middle here. As long as I'm heavy there, why don't we just clean a little bit of that out of the way. Yeah. We're going to bring this a little closer to the inside of my bowl.
Get rid of some of that. Okay, I can still feel, I can feel like I got plenty of meat in there. So now I can start, I'm gonna move my tool rest over like so. And I don't know if we can see that. I don't think you can see that, but there's a little step right here. So I'm just gonna come in here with my tool, pick that step up, and roll myself down into the bottom of my bowl. Check my bowl thickness. So I'm good right to here, so I can get rid of a little bit more that way. A little bit more to get off of there. What I can do is I can come back out here and pick that little groove up. Take a little cut, let it cut, let it cut. And get a little bit more. Yeah, now I should be perfect. That's good. And right now, I'm at that step that we left earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to round the bottom out so I don't have to use this tool anymore. I know that I got a nice transition from here to here. I'm going to take a little bit more of this as I go into the bottom. But now we're going to round that bottom, and I know I'm going to have enough wood when I turn this around because I left all that extra. But I'm going to come back here. I just wanted to take that little extra off. Now we can round that. We're just basically going to round that out. I'm going to find the bottom of the bowl right now. What I want to do is now I want to stand over here. When I'm over here, I'd like to get, but now I can stand here and I can actually see what's going on, and I can push that. I can push that in, and I can turn my body to make that transition. And now I got a step right there, so I can come up to that step, walk it in, and make the transition. Come back up, I still got a step right there. Now I can come back, I'm high. There we go. Now I just one step left.
Yeah, that's not too bad. It feels nice. It feels round. A nice transition. I take my loop. There we go. You actually can see my loop. There we go. And this space is 1 inch. Pretty much stays that way. I don't ever change it hardly. So I know that I'm at the bottom. That from the bottom of this to the bottom of my tenon is 1 inch. So I got plenty of room. So I'm actually going to turn this around. Normally I'd sand this down a little bit, clean it all up, make it pretty. But we're not going to do that because I'm pretty sure most of you know how to sand. So I don't have to show you any of that. I'm just going to show you 2 more steps that I do. Whoop. I close this up. And as long as that sits here, I'll take my wire loop again and just make sure I was correct. And glad I used my wire loop because that's 3/8. I know that's 3/8 because I use this wire loop all the time. So I know that's around 3/8. So that means from the bottom of this to the inside bottom of my bowl, I've got 5/8 of an inch to play with. So when I make this transition, I don't want to go much more than a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch beyond this point. If I go too far, I'll wind up on the inside of my bowl, and I don't want to show you guys how to do that. I'd rather see you learn that on your own. It can be almost as much fun as blowing one of these apart. Okay. This is what I use as my friction chuck. This is just about a 1/2 inch piece of foam. It's fairly dense. I just put that in here. Bring this up, like so. Bring this over here, slide this up. Now I just have to, I gotta make sure though that piece of foam is centered in the bottom. Right then, it was off a little bit. So you want to make sure it's fairly centered. I can tell that by spinning it. I bring it tight. Turn this on. Yeah. And that's running fairly true. So what I do now, or at least if my intention was to take this bowl and let it dry, I would reduce this tenon to a smaller one. And how big is this small one? I don't know that either. So this goes down to 2 inches. So I'm at 3.5 thereabouts to 2 inches. So I'm going to get rid of an inch or so of extra wood. So when it's drying, the less wood I have down here, the less chance I'm going to have of it cracking. So it dries even. You know, it's a uniform thickness from the top to the bottom. So I don't mind doing this here. So I'll just come back over here. Got to figure out if that's the right size. That looks good to me. And what we're going to do now is just get rid of some of this tenon. And what was that, Rick? You were going to say?
Oh, I didn't know where you were going to stand.
Oh, okay.
Move the camera or leave it. You know where you go from here.
Okay, we're just going to go right here. And then that was where that extra step is. So now I'm going to come at this. I'm going to find my way into this step, get rid of it, go back into that tenon, and I'm going to leave a little bit here. And normally I would leave this smaller tenon on, and I got a bunch of them over there drying, so I can always bring them back, put them on after they're dry, sand them up nice, clean them up, and then just take that tenon off. But tonight I'm just getting rid of the whole thing, but I'm just going to show you how I do it first. So now we're going to come here. And so right now, that's just a small nub of a tenon, but I would only be using that to sand my bowl down and just to hold it, to clamp it. I wouldn't be trying to turn anything because by the time that's dry, it's going to be so warped. I just want to be able to hold it, to clean up my outside, clean up my inside. But now you can see that that's a nice radius. It's following it through. I can get rid of a little bit more right here because I can feel that right there. So we're going to clean this up a little bit, and then we're going to run it down to the bottom. And remember, you know, if I wanted to, I'd be sanding this down right now, so it'd be all ready for a finish when I'm done. But because you guys know how to sand, I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to live with that. That feels pretty good. And I know the inside of my bowl is round. So if as long as I'm making the outside of my bowl round, I'm not going to go through it. So that would have been the tenon that I would leave. So I'd normally let this dry and bring it back later after it's dry and finish cleaning it up. Sometimes if this was a bowl that was going to crack on me and I was afraid it was going to crack on me, I'd go and put it on my rotisserie and I'd put epoxy on it. And that would prevent that cracking to take place. Or at least if it did crack, it eliminates it. I don't have to worry about it cracking anymore. So we're going to get rid of this bottom tenon now. Okay. If you remember, that was 5/8, so we can take off about 1/4 of an inch beyond that, so we can get rid of this, get rid of this here, get rid of a little bit more. We're going to draw it out. I know that's where my bottom's going to be, over in there somewhere. can shut it off. I can feel. And it feels pretty good. This would sand out. That would sand out nice. I got a nice bottom. Everything looks pretty good to me. I don't know how it looks to you guys out there. If it looks anything like what I'm looking at right there. Oh, he's highlighting just the bowl. Everything else is dark. He did an awesome job.
Your lights are so bright.
Oh,
Blow the cameras out.
okay. But so you can actually see. You can also see that piece of hot wood here and here. So it's at the top, pretty balanced on both sides. So normally I would clean this up, but now we can just get rid of that. There. So we're just going to come in, take some away, go in, take some away, go in, take some away, go in, follow that round radius, take some away, follow that round radius, take some away, follow that round radius. Get rid of some of the shoulder here, get some of this shoulder here, shoulder here. Yeah, now I'm just going to have a little nub right there. So we're going to have a nice little nub to get rid of. And just for the record, I don't know if you can you zoom in on my chisel here, Mike? Can you zoom in on this? Yeah, let's see what we're doing here. There. That's that chisel. And that's a fingernail grind. And what I got going on here is all this material is gone. This is not the bevel. That's all waste. I got rid of all of that. My bevel is probably about 1/8 of an inch. That's all I have is just that little spot there as a bevel. Which means it cuts nice this way. It just, and I only figured this out, I think yesterday, trying to sharpen my tools so I look like I know what I'm doing here. And this was a hook. I don't know if any of you ever just do those hooks that they're not nice. They're not the way they're supposed to be. They all say you're not supposed to have a hook at the end. It's a fingernail grind, not a chicken's foot. A chicken's beak, you know, chicken beak is like so. Nice flat top with just a small bevel, and that's all I need because now I can go in here and clean that up really nice, and it works out. But it was only yesterday that I figured out how to do that. And it's amazing. Once you figure it out, it's like, wow, that was simple. Why did it take me so long to figure out something so simple? And get rid of this little nub here. Back this off the rubber. And that's all we got to do. And that's my round bottom bowl. And I think I'm a little heavier than I normally would want. Where's my wire? No, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Got about a 1/2 inch in the bottom here, thereabouts. I'm pretty happy. And then with this little nub, I would And now you have, here we go. Now I have a nice round bottom bowl. And almost no sanding on this. I would have sanded it, cleaned it up, and that becomes a nice bowl. And if you saw me, you know, learn how to do this radius here, learn how to do this undercut and bring it down in the bottom here. I got a bowl I'm going to bring right back to you. Yep. You know, by doing a bunch of these, I did this bowl the other day. And you can see that nice transition. Again, I'm learning how to go with the flow, so to speak. And then I can come back in here, the same as I'm doing there. I'm just walking it down through. And I come up with a pretty nice form. It's consistent. Thickness is the same throughout. And actually, this is epoxy because this is actually a crush. There's a limb here. There's a limb here. And then my main trunk is here. And that's a little bit of a feather right here. And it's wanted to be cracking here and here. So I said, okay, it was a dry piece of wood. It's been sitting around for about 6-7 years. So I just threw epoxy on it right away. And that crack isn't going anywhere. But that is what we call our Calabash bowl. And the important thing is that 1/3, 2/3 in a round bottom. If it has the round bottom, it's going to float around really nice. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you how nice it floats around. You might be able to come over here. You know, so it spins. I really like the way it spins. Like, and remember, this is chipboard, so it's not a real flat surface. But it's just, you know, it's going to always come back just upright. I think that's pretty cool. So even though this is going to dry and it's going to warp, it's still going to sit nice on your table after it's all done moving. And if there are any questions, I might be able to answer one or two. And if there are any.
Hey, Roland,
Yes.
if you're not going to sand that bowl, why don't you cut it in half on your bandsaw and show everybody how the curve flows and how it's undercut?
That seems like a waste.
Yes. I'm going to show you about that undercut because I already have one that's, and then you can see the undercut right here. You can see my wall thickness is consistent throughout. You know, no matter what piece you pick up, it's going to be the same thickness. And that's two sides of the same piece. So this was here, that was there. I'm missing the middle part, but who cares? But instead of cutting that bowl, that's fairly nice. I hope this satisfies your needs.
Looks good.
Yeah, no, it was a great demo, Roland.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Roland.
Yeah, who
Yeah,
make the
thank you.
hollowing tool that you used? Who makes that?
I don't know the name. I was fortunate enough to wind up in one of those Woodturners basements, and he had went to heaven, and the wife didn't want the tools.
Ah,
And that's how I wound up with them.
Well, good way.
I don't know. It was 5 years ago. I actually met her in my store the other day. And it was kind of funny, but she insisted I bought stuff from her husband, and I never bought a bowl from anybody because I can make my own. But then she finally went as far as the tools, and I said, okay, now I remember who you are. I did buy the tools. I didn't buy enough of them. I wish I bought more, but I didn't know any better back then. But I bought a few of them, and I still did good.
excellent.
Yeah, great.
So it's just a piece of steel.
Never anything wrong with
Yeah,
having
nice edge on it.
tools.
I think it's called Kelton. I don't know if you can see it. It's so funny when you're looking at that. Can you zoom in on that? Can anybody? Or maybe if I go here, I can zoom in on my own. There we go.
No,
too far.
Okay.
Right here.
Well, if you
That's
hold
Kelton.
one of the tools up, I can tell
This
you
came
what
from the same basement. These are small. Nice little,
those are Keltons.
these are nice for doing those little hollow forms. But these are Kelton, I assume, because they came in this package. The
Those
big
are
one didn't come in a
Kelton. I
package,
got
but
those.
because they're Kelton small, I'm guessing that he bought the Kelton big.
Yeah,
But I
they
also
come
have
in
several others, you know, I've got another boring tool like so.
three
It's
sizes.
nice. Trent Bosch, what we're going to be seeing in a couple weeks. You know, these are his boring tools. These are nice to get rid of a lot of metal, but they leave a terrible finish. He has another bar with this, with a nice scraper that's attached to the other bar. So you need to have two sets of bars if you want to have a finish that's nice. But they're nice. And, you know, and then I've got different types. But the ones that I use the most, this one here that I showed you. I like these, and I like the small Kelton. And something like this, I'll use Trent's to get rid of most of it. And that's like a deeper, bigger hollow form. I will use this, and then I'll go in with this nice scraper. And this is a nice wall finisher. So I got a nice clean transition from top to bottom. How's that?
Perfect.
Did everybody go home?
Nope, we're here.
Nope.
There's lots of people still signed in.
So Roland, do you finish your products in the same room, or do you have a different room for where you epoxy your bowls?
When I put my finish on,
Yes.
I put my finish over there. So I do epoxy. You can actually see if Rick gets out of the way. Okay, yeah, he can turn his around too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so these are my rotisserie tables. This is my rotisserie. I got 4 rotisseries that spin here. So I like to spin my epoxy, and I also use the Halcyon as a finish. Can we see that? Yeah. So I use this as a top coat over the epoxy, so I get my UV protection. This is made up with a flaxseed finish. So I call my finish a food safe finish, because flaxseed is good. Now on this side, I will do my pure tung oil. Pure tung oil with citrus oil mixed in, smells good. It's nice. And when I use my waterlock tung oil, that's got a foul smell. I'll do that outside. The epoxy, the Halcyon likes to be warm. They like to be around 70 degrees or so. And so I try to finish it in here. And because I've got that new dust collector out back, it just keeps all my dust down. So I can continue to work and have my stuff wet and dry here. So it works out nice.
And how are you holding the bowls on those rotisserie pieces? Are you able to use a chuck?
Okay, no, I'll show you. No, I got one. Remember? Well, yeah, it's all done. This way you can see. Okay, and if you give me that block of wood and one of those pieces of metal. Great. So what I do is I put that, if you notice that small tenon that I had, and you can see the small tenon on this. So that's a small tenon. And in order to get this on that tenon, I have to go against that with a block of wood. So the block of wood has got, the holes are closer, so it can go into the tenon. It leaves me plenty of room, and then I can screw this. And this is just a pipe fitting, a black pipe, and this is the hang pipe from the ceiling. it's just a clamp. It just helps. It's a floor flange, and that's what this is called. And so after I put these two on, then I have this. And you can see how I got a nice space, so I can get my epoxy down to the base here. And then after this is dry, after this is all done, I'll remount it, and I'll take this off just like I just did over there. I'll just take a little a time till it's done, and then I got a nice finish. But then, so this is just goes back on here. And so that's the face plate, and now it's screwed on. And then I just turn it on, and I can't, because there's no juice going to any of this. But even if I had it plugged in, you wouldn't be able to see it turn, because it only turns 1 to 2 revolutions a minute. So it works out nice that way.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How many horsepower is your new dust collector?
Five horse, I think. It's got 3 motors. It's 220. I think it's at least 5 horse. But it's the who makes that? Oneida makes that. But it's not a traditional dust collector with a big squirrel cage. It's just a giant vacuum cleaner. So it's got 3 heads on the very top of it that works like a vacuum cleaner. So I can pick up big chips. I can pick up hunks of wood. As long as it goes through my 4-inch ductwork, it'll drop into my bag on the inside, which is on the other side of the wall. It just works. It's a phenomenal. I'm really happy with it. And then because it's on the other side of the wall, when it's running, I cannot hear it. The only thing I hear is the air going through my pipe.
Nice. Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank
Roland,
Thanks,
great
Roland. That
job.
was great.
Enjoyed
Thanks a
that
lot,
immensely.
Roland.
Thank you, Roland.
So I gotta ask, how did the video come out with Mike and his new vMix program? Was that compared to some of the other ones we've done? I didn't get a chance to watch the video. I was moving the camera around, but did the production end of it seem better than normal or average, or any comment on that?
It was really nice having the overhead and the side view, and then being able to have them both on the screen at the same time at different times. The lighting on the work was a little bright, so it was hard
Yeah.
to see details sometimes, at least for me.
Right. It
Yeah.
got washed out. The lighting washed out. The
Yeah.
light-
You would not believe how bright this shop is. And then adding light to that light. So yeah, that's something we're working on, but yeah, lighting is something that Mike's been working on, but Mike Cotton, our club secretary, is doing all this on his own, and this was his, what would you say, your trial run. So this was run number 1 with this program. So we'll see. Hopefully it gets better each time.
Yeah, it was great though.
Thanks for all your hard work. It really worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, if I remember, you were talking with Cindy quite a bit at the end of the meeting last time.
Yes.
Yeah. And she was helpful.
Yeah, she turned me on to the Lucid Woodturners, which is basically what got me all set up here. My only a new one coming.
Can't really
Can only
hear
get
you.
better.
Yeah.
Can only get better from here.
Yeah, no, it was great though.
Thank you.
All right, so they can
We done? I think we're done.
I think we're done.
All right.